By the end of this video, I want you to be able to take measurements from an item that you find online or in a catalog and create a scale drawing based on that item's actual measurements. Okay, so this is an item that I found on IKEA, and it's a loft bed. But what is really cool about it is it has lots of storage. So I saw this storage on the side here could be for like supply boxes. The place down here has a little bit of supplies, but also some workspace. Because this is a pretty big item, I want to make sure that it's going to fit in the classroom, and I want to be thinking about how much space it will take up. So I need to look at the measurements. What I love about IKEA is they usually have the centimeters measurements, which makes it easier for our metric system measurements. We really need to stick with centimeters and meters and not using inches. Okay, so the important measurements I need is the width and the length. The height would be kind of important because we wanted to make sure it doesn't run into the ceiling, but most likely our school ceilings are taller than a house ceiling, so we're probably okay there. But I could check that later if I wanted to. I'm mainly wanting to know how much space it's going to take up in our classroom, like on the floor. Okay, so let's talk about width and length. Width is going to tell me how far away from the wall the item is going to come out. So if this is my wall, this loft bed is going to stretch out 105.5 centimeters. So it's going to be how much it sticks out from the wall. My length is kind of when we think of like how long it is against the wall. So it would stretch from the file cabinet all the way to the table. And the length of it is 197 centimeters. Okay, but the problem is if I were going to make a map or a model, if I tried to make something 105 centimeters by 200 centimeters, I would just have the actual size of the item, and that's not really a model because that would be the actual size. So the actual size is how big it would be if we bought it and put it together, okay? What I want is a scale size. I want to scale it down and make it smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide these two numbers to make them smaller. With metric system, this is super easy to do. So I'm going to divide each number divided by 10. And I'm going to see how many centimeters or units I'm going to draw if I divide this by 10. Basically, my scale model is going to be 1/10 of the actual model. What's really cool about dividing by 10, if my measurement is 105 centimeters and I want to divide that by 10, all I really have to think about is moving the decimal one place. So 105.5 equals 10.55. So I've made a table to organize my information. Over here you'll see that I have my actual centimeters. And so my actual centimeters are what I got from the catalog in IKEA. This is how many centimeters this width and length is of the loft bed. Make sure that you're looking at centimeters. I want to scale this down smaller. So I'm going to divide the actual divided by 10 so that my picture is smaller than what it actually is. Just like a map is smaller than the actual place because they have to fit it all on one piece of paper for you to see. So I'm going to divide by 10 because it's super easy. When I divide 105.5 divided by 10, my answer is going to be 10.55. And 197 divided by 10 is 19.7. Okay, so here's where we're going to use this graph paper, and it's a little bit tricky. This is 10.5. This is 19.7. I'm going to kind of round off to make it close as can be. I'm going to be close to 11 and 20 units when I draw on my graph paper. Each square is going to be one of these units. So when I have several squares, those aren't even, but pretend they are. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's 6. I need 11. So looking down here on my paper, I'm going to count over on my width. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. I did actually go kind of 10.5 there. For my length, here I go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. My other two sides are going to be exactly the same because this is a rectangle. So that is what it's going to look like on my graph paper. My graph paper is showing what the scaled version of this is going to be. And now I can start placing these things on my big piece of paper that represents the whole room. And this will give you a more clear picture of what will fit in the classroom. Okay, so let's take a look at one more example. I'm looking at this shelf, and when I click on product information below the shelf, it will open up my dimensions. Again, I'm wanting this information here in centimeters. This part up above, if you see those two little lines, that means inches. So we do not want to use inches. We are looking for centimeters. I do not really need the height. That's telling me how tall this thing is. We should be good. That should not be a problem. So I'm looking at width and the depth. The depth is going to be how far away from the wall it comes. That's our depth. Okay. And our width is going to be how far it stretches across the wall. Okay, so I need to find the scale because my actual dimensions I moved over here. My width, or the direction on here, it's called the depth. The direction that's going to come off the wall is 39 centimeters. I need to divide that by 10, 3.9. 147 divided by 10, 14.7. So when I draw that on my graph paper, this is really close to 4. So I'm just going to draw 4, and I'm going to draw 15. 7 is closer to the next 10, so I'm going to round up to 15. So now I'm going to draw that. So 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to draw 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Go up 4 and over, on my line as much as possible. And I have 4 by 15. If you noticed in my other one, I labeled the inside. This is the calyx shelf. That's why I remember what this is representing. And it is 140 centimeters. This multiplication means by, so it's like the other length, the other direction, centimeters. So that's my actual, I know what it's called. So if I'm putting it in the room, I can remember, oh, this is the shelf. Where do I want to put the shelf? Okay, we're going to look at a little tricky one. Let's say I want this auto stool. I think it's a great stool for storing pillows inside, but they would make great stools as well as maybe at a table, or maybe that's the table where students are working with Mrs. Jenkard. So they make good stools, but they're also stored. So I love that. Couple things that are tricky. This is a circle. So that's one little tricky part. Another tricky part is on my information, my dimensions, it's in inches and there is no centimeters. So this is a problem where I would need to go to Google and I would need to search, it's not going to let me highlight it, but I would need to search convert inches to centimeters. And I can see right here that it says the height, again, that's not really important, but it's 16 by 16 inches. So I need, let's see if I can get this to work, to put in 16 inches. And so notice that this is my inches, and then it changed it to 40 centimeters. So 16 inches is about the same as 40.6 centimeters. So let's go here, and I'm going to go back up here, and it's going to be 46, what did I say, 0.6 centimeters. And it's going to be the same on both those. I'm just going to check that I remembered that right. Oh, 40.6. It's important to get it right. Okay, 40.6. It's the same on both. And I could go ahead, I meant to write in my inches. So it was 16 inches, sorry. When I converted it using Google, it told me that 16 inches is equal to 40.6 centimeters. Now, on my scale, remember I'm going to divide by 10, which means I move the decimal over. So it's going to be 4.06, 4.06. So that's about 4. That's going to be close enough. So I'm going to draw that 4 by 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I wanted to, I could connect here. I could make it a circle, but I want to make sure my circle touches the edges, because my circle has to reach that 4 centimeters or that 4 units. And then remember to label that. So auto stool. And I can say 40 by 40 centimeters. This is a desk on wheels that seats 2 students, and from Smith System. And so let's say I wanted to get some of these. I'm not going to go through this one, but I'm just kind of getting you started on that process. This is in inches, and the way I know that is because it's got those 2 little lines. So that means this is 48 inches by 20 inches. So I would need to use Google to convert, find out my centimeters, divide it by 10 when I got to here, and then I would know how many units for my graph paper. And that's how you turn actual objects and scale them down so that they can fit on your 3D model.